A man hijacks a plane, takes $200,000, jumps into the night sky, and disappears forever. No body, no trace, no identity. Even today, nobody knows who he really was. It was November 24th, 1971, Thanksgiving Eve in the United States. Airports were crowded, flights were full, and people were eager to reach their families before the holiday. At Portland International Airport, everything looked completely normal, just another busy evening. But among the crowd, there was one man who didn't stand out at all. He was dressed simply, black suit, white shirt, thin black tie, and a long raincoat. His hair was neatly combed, and he wore dark sunglasses even though it wasn't particularly sunny. He looked calm, quiet, almost invisible in the crowd. This man approached the ticket counter and bought a one-way ticket under the name Dan Cooper. No one questioned it. At that time, airport security was nothing like today. No ID checks, no metal detectors, no baggage scans. You could walk into an airport, buy a ticket, and board a plane within minutes. And that's exactly what he did. He boarded Northwest Orient Airlines Flight 305, a Boeing 727 aircraft, heading from Portland to Seattle. It was a short flight, just about 30 minutes. Nothing unusual. No one could have imagined what was about to happen. Inside the plane, Cooper chose seat 18C near the rear of the aircraft. He placed his briefcase beside him and calmly ordered a drink, bourbon and soda. The flight attendants described him as polite, well-mannered, and completely normal. There was no panic, no tension, just silence. As the plane took off into the cloudy evening sky, Cooper sat quietly, observing everything around him. He wasn't nervous. He wasn't fidgeting. He looked like a man who knew exactly what he was doing. A few minutes into the flight, he called one of the flight attendants, Florence Schaffner. He handed her a small folded note. At first, she didn't think much of it. She assumed it was just a phone number or a casual message, something passengers often did back then. Without even looking at it, she slipped it into her purse. That's when Cooper leaned closer and calmly said, "Miss, you'd better look at that note. I have a bomb." Everything changed in that moment. The calm, ordinary flight suddenly turned into something else entirely. Shaking slightly, Florence opened the note. It read clearly and simply, "I have a bomb in my briefcase. I will use it if necessary." Her heart started racing. Cooper then opened his briefcase just enough for her to see inside. What she saw froze her completely. Red cylinders, wires, and what appeared to be a real explosive device. This was not a joke. This was real. But what made it even more terrifying was how calm he was. No shouting, no threats, no panic, just control. He calmly gave his demands. $200,000 in cash, 4 parachutes, a fuel truck waiting in Seattle, and he gave very specific instructions. The money had to be in $20 bills. The parachutes had to be civilian, not military. He wasn't taking any chances. Florence immediately informed the cockpit. Inside, the pilots couldn't believe what they were hearing. But they had no choice. This was a real threat, and they had passengers on board. The message was quickly relayed to authorities. On the ground, the FBI and airline officials scrambled into action. Time was running out. The plane was already in the air, and they had to make a decision fast. The authorities agreed to Cooper's demands. The plane was instructed to circle in the air near Seattle while preparations were made. Below, chaos had begun. Police, FBI agents, and airport staff rushed to gather the ransom money and parachutes. Meanwhile, inside the aircraft, something strange was happening. Despite hijacking a plane, Cooper remained completely composed. He even reassured the passengers. He told the flight attendants, "Don't worry, I don't want to hurt anyone." Passengers had no idea what was happening. They were told there was a minor delay due to a mechanical issue. Some looked out the windows, wondering why the plane was circling for so long. But inside the cabin, time felt frozen. Every second was heavy. Every movement mattered. Finally, after nearly 2 hours in the air, the plane was cleared to land at Seattle-Tacoma Airport. As the aircraft slowly touched down, all eyes were on what would happen next. Would he keep his word? Would he release the passengers? Or was something worse about to happen? The plane taxied to a remote area of the runway. Lights dimmed, engines running, silence everywhere. And then, the real game began. The plane taxied to a remote part of the runway, engines still running, Lights dim, and tension everywhere. Outside, FBI agents and ground crews stood at a distance, carefully following every instruction. There was no room for mistakes. Inside the cabin, D.B. Cooper remained calm, as if he was in complete control of the situation. The money was delivered first. A bag filled with $200,000 in cash, all in $20 bills, just as he demanded. Then came the parachutes. 4 parachutes, exactly as instructed. Cooper quickly checked everything. No panic, no rush, just precision. Once he was satisfied, he made his next move. He ordered all the passengers to be released. One by one, they walked out of the plane, confused, unaware of how serious the situation had been. Now, only a few crew members remained on board. The real operation was about to begin. Cooper walked toward the cockpit and gave new instructions. He told the pilots to take off again. Direction: Mexico City, but with strict conditions. Fly low, around 10,000 feet. Keep the speed slow, and most importantly, keep the rear staircase accessible. The pilots realized something terrifying. This man knew the aircraft. He knew exactly what he was planning. The plane took off again, into the dark night sky. Rain began to fall. Clouds surrounded the aircraft. Inside, the cabin lights were dim, and the tension was heavier than ever. Cooper called the flight attendant, Tina Mucklow. He calmly handed her instructions, then asked her to come with him to the rear of the plane. There, he began preparing. He opened the parachutes, selected one, carefully checked the straps, then tied the bag of money securely to himself. Every movement was controlled, every step planned. Tina watched in silence. She later said, "He didn't look scared. He looked focused, like a man who had done this before." Then came the final moment. Cooper turned to her and said calmly, "Go to the cockpit, close the door, and don't come out." There was something in his voice, not anger, not fear, just certainty. Tina slowly walked away, step by step, until she reached the cockpit. She closed the door, locked it. Inside, the pilots sat silently. No one spoke. Minutes passed. Then suddenly, a mechanical sound echoed through the plane. The rear staircase was being lowered. Cold air rushed inside. The aircraft slightly shifted. The pilots felt it. They looked at each other. They knew. Somewhere behind that door, D.B. Cooper was standing at the edge. Outside, there was nothing but darkness, heavy rain, strong winds, and an endless drop below. At exactly 8:13 p.m., the aircraft suddenly jerked upward, just slightly, but enough. That moment was everything. Because investigators later believed that was the exact second D.B. Cooper jumped. Into the night, into the storm, into history. After that, there was nothing. No sound, no signal, no trace. When the plane finally landed in Reno, FBI agents rushed inside immediately, weapons ready, eyes searching. But the cabin was empty. The rear stairs were open. 2 parachutes were gone, and D.B. Cooper had disappeared. Just like that, gone without a trace. The cabin was completely silent, the rear stairs still open, cold wind rushing inside. And the man who just pulled off one of the most daring crimes in history was gone. No body, no parachute, no sign of where he landed, just emptiness. The FBI immediately launched one of the biggest investigations in American history. They named the case Norjack, Northwest Hijacking. Within hours, search teams were deployed across Washington state. Helicopters scanned the skies. Ground teams entered dense forests. Divers searched rivers and lakes. But the conditions were brutal. Cold weather, heavy rain, thick forests stretching for miles. If Cooper had landed there, survival itself was a challenge. Days passed, then weeks, then months, but there was nothing. No trace of D.B. Cooper. The only clue they had was a black clip-on tie left behind on seat 18C. The FBI analyzed it carefully, searching for fingerprints, fibers, anything. But even that led nowhere. They created a sketch, a man in his 40s, calm, composed, and spread it across the country. Thousands of tips came in. People claimed they saw him, knew him, recognized him, but none of them were real. Suspects were questioned. Some had military experience. Some knew aviation. Some matched the description. But every lead ended the same way. Dead end. Years passed. The case slowly turned cold until 1980. Nearly a decade later, something unexpected happened. A young boy playing near the Columbia River discovered something buried in the sand. Old, decaying bundles of cash. When the FBI examined it, the serial numbers matched. It was Cooper's money. But here's the mystery. Only a small portion was found. The rest was still missing. No one could explain how it got there or what really happened that night. And once again, D.B. Cooper remained a mystery. But the story didn't end there. In fact, that's where the real mystery began. Because after years of investigation, the FBI had one shocking realization. They didn't know who D.B. Cooper really was. No real name, no past, no identity, just a sketch and a man who vanished into thin air. So investigators turned towards something else: theories. The first theory was simple. Cooper didn't survive. The conditions that night were brutal. Heavy rain, strong winds, freezing cold, and below him, miles of dense forest, sharp rocks, and a dark, freezing river. Even trained skydivers would struggle in those conditions. So maybe, the moment he jumped, he lost control and never made it out alive. But then, there was another side. Because everything Cooper did didn't look like luck. It looked planned. He knew about the aircraft. He knew the rear stairs. He controlled the speed, altitude, route, and most importantly, he stayed calm. No panic, no fear. That's not how an amateur behaves. So what if he was trained? Ex-military, paratrooper, someone who had done this before. And if that's true, then maybe he didn't jump blindly. Maybe he knew exactly where he would land. Then comes the most chilling theory. What if he survived? What if he landed safely, took the money, and simply disappeared? 1971 was different. No cameras, no digital tracking. A man could vanish and become someone else. Maybe he changed his name, moved to another city, started a new life, watching the world search for him, while he lived quietly, right among them. And then, there's the money. Only a small part was ever found, the rest still missing. If he died, where is the rest? If he survived, why didn't he use it? Nothing makes sense. And maybe that's the truth. This wasn't just a crime. It was the perfect mystery.